I'm Lucy Bradshaw. I'm the executive producer on Spore. Here at the Maxis studio we have about 102 people. 90 people are on the actual development team working directly on the game. And we kind of split right down the middle on whether we're from the science side or the cute side. And it's kind of been a back and forth in terms of where we were going to be. We'll finally set down the target of can we get from Pixar to Geiger, and that kind of settled things. And the artists ultimately took that challenge on both with the animation as well as the rig blocks, the blocks that ultimately make up the palettes for the creators that you get to play around with and make creatures and buildings and vehicles. And so we ended up with an aesthetic that I think kind of allows you to make something as cute as something that you'd see, you know, in a morning cartoon, and something kind of scary as well, along with the textures and everything. I think we kind of hit a right balance on that. Really, when we decided to start making it, we started naturally on the PC platform. Ultimately, we're able to take advantage of the Mac and the way that that platform has advanced. And since it's such a creative game, I think it really works well on those spaces. Then it just happened that we had an opportunity to take it to a few other platforms for launch. We'll have Spore Creatures on the Nintendo DS and the iPhone. We have a version called Spore Origins, which is really about being in the tide pool, and the mobile phone. So that's what we're going to be launching in September 7th. Well, the PC and the Mac, they share all of the content. So any player who happens to be on either one of those platforms, they can actually see other players' content that have been made from whether it was on a Macintosh or on a PC. And you see that in our Sporepedia. And in fact, if you go to the website, you can see content from both of those platforms. The other platforms, they really sort of have a unique take on things. The Spore Creatures on the Nintendo DS, we kind of reinterpreted Spore for the DS platform, really making use of the stylus. It has its own little creature creator and a lot of gameplay that takes advantage of how you evolve your creature. Well, one of the things about the Sims players is that they've always expressed a tremendous amount of creativity in the way that they've played the game. I mean, some of the stories, the lots that they've created, their own Sims and everything. So I think the creativity that Spore allows you to have in making your own creature, your own buildings, vehicles, and even planets is really going to kind of hit home with that audience. Making the Sims and making Spore has really been very different challenges. One, you really have, you know, a more defined set of what is real life about. How would people interact with that? You know, people, human beings in a household. And yet you get to interpret and riff off of that, you know, sort of real life experiences. And where are you going to take that? With Spore, it's been a lot more about let's understand what's the concept. How are people going to engage with this? Like, how do they understand how evolution is going to make a difference and how their choices in each one of the creators is going to ultimately play out in the gameplay? So a lot of it that we had to struggle with and were challenges was sort of that construct. You know, how are we going to set the context so that the player understands what they're playing and what they're doing from each stage to the next. The other big challenge for Spore was that you go from this little microbe in a tide pool and you're playing an Avatar-style game, and as you evolve, you take on, you know, owning this village full of little tribe members, or even a civilization where suddenly you're moving vehicles around a planet, and each step of the way you're scaling out and seeing more and more of the planet, and you command more territory. And so transitioning from, you know, sort of a first-person point of view down to an RTS view really kind of was some challenges that we really worked on, making sure that we got that whole scope, that sort of journey that made it feel like you were really investing in one species, one creation, your own guy over a period of time. Well, one of the things about each game stage is it's pretty clear how the editors, the creators, ultimately have a role in that stage. So while you're in the cell stage, which parts you put on are really going to affect what you eat, you know, how powerful you are you going to be sort of meek and, you know, an herbivore? Are you going to run away, adding on speed like flagella or the cilia? Or are you going to go for a more powerful cell and get the spikes and, you know, the poison and everything? Where in Creature, this kind of sort of the morphology and these parts that ultimately give you these abilities play a very big role in how the game plays for you. Later on, it's more your vehicle types and your buildings. How are they going to ultimately make a difference in terms of how your culture forms? What kind of identity are they going to have? Will they be more aggressive, religious, or economic? And so these things really kind of take a different context for each stage of the game. And later you get to see all this content and in the space stage as you travel from one planet to the next. Not only your own, but the content from other players that has been shared to your system. So every single planet that you come to can ultimately have different creations, different creatures, vehicles, buildings, and everything. I've pretty much fallen in love with the tribe stage. And I think it's because That's really when you start to develop more of the sort of culture of your, little village, and their personalities really come out. You have a group, they start playing together, and ultimately, there's a little bit of fun and activities. There's also a lot of different strategies you can take in the tribal stage, and how you're going to play out interacting with each one of the other neighboring tribes, which are, of course, other species as well as different kind of personalities. So are they going to be more friendly? What kind of, sort of social interaction are you going to have? Or are you going to go with the aggressive route? And what kind of tools are you going to use to kind of advance your tribe? But I think it's the personality in the tribe stage that I think makes the game just really fun to play out.